Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Good to see you again. I hope you guys are doing well. And today we just got a short video. The new starter deck, Starter Deck 14, just came out, 3D2Y. It's got the Luffy leader, and yeah, we're just going to go over some of the cards, talk about, you know, is this something, you know, is this leader worth kind of thinking about, you know, potentially in the future of the game. And I do think this is a really unique starter deck in the way that black mechanics work. So I do find a lot of interest in this, but I don't believe that it's going to be a massive, you know, meta-changing starter deck by any means. But I do think there's a lot of interesting cards in here. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and pop it open. And this is a question that I get a lot with all of these starter decks. I get this almost every time I do any starter deck video, or as far as, you know, any of these extra, you know, cards that you can pick up outside of average sets. And the one thing that I want to bring up as far as the question is concerned is, I get a lot of questions that people say, hey, should I pick this up? Yes, you should. If you're looking to play the game seriously, you should always pick up the starter decks, because down the line, if you don't have these cards, this starter deck might go up a ton in value. And we actually saw that back when our starter deck 6 first came out. The Navy starter deck with Great Eruption, Hina, Helmeppo, stuff like that. You know, at first people were like, oh, this is not that great. You know, they were selling for super cheap. And then boom, OP05 happened. And those shot up to like $40, $60 a starter deck. It was ridiculous. So it might even have been higher. So it's always worth picking up, in my opinion. But we do have the Luffy leader here. This is going to be a mono black 5-life leader, 5,000 power, but a lot of the time 6,000 power. So Dawn X1, all of your characters gain +1 cost. If you have a character with a cost of 8 or more, this character gains +1,000 power. So what I think makes this interesting, but in my opinion is slightly unfortunate, is that this is, you know, kind of like an anti-black mechanic, but it's in the color black. So I think it's very interesting and unique to kind of consider as, oh, well, now my opponent has to do more cost reduction to get rid of my, you know, my board or my cards. And I don't know. I think that where this deck starts is pretty cool, but where it will go in the future is probably what I'm more excited about. I don't think the leader is amazing, but being able to be a 6K is pretty dang good. Pretty dang good. So now you think about cards that are coming out in OP08. Yeah, OP08, you think about Jack, you know, having a really high cost and probably not getting removed. This being a 6K leader for the rest of the game is pretty massive. So I do like the idea. So we'll see where that goes. But we do have our 2 SRs. So we've got Sanji here. Sanji is going to be on play if you have a character with a cost of 6 or more. KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So we do get 2 of those, and that is a 5/6, so pretty nice. We've also got Nami, and she is obviously very moody. 3 cost, 2,000 power, 1K counter blocker that is on play if you have 6 or less cards in hand and a character with 8 or more, draw 1. I do think that this actually is a card that can be relevant at multiple points. I will say, though, that it's more or less a worse Rebecca. So I don't know if they were trying to print this in, you know, thoughts of potentially getting or restricting Rebecca at some point. But yeah, it's pretty much a worse Rebecca if you think about it. So Nami, not terrible, but also not great. It is 1 Dawn less than Rebecca, at least. We also have Usopp. This is going to be Dawn X1 if you have a character with a cost of 8 or more. KO up to one of your opponent's characters 4 or less. So Yet again, kind of going off of that, like, you have to have a character of 8 cost or more. With leader effect, that mostly means you just have to have a 7 cost because it gets bumped up by Luffy's leader effect. But it's, you know, some of these cards feel a little lackluster. There's a few in here, though, that I think are really, really interesting, very cool pieces. So we'll see how those turn out. But Jinbei is a 1k counter as well, and the vast majority of these tend to be Straw Hat Crew cards, which also is pretty interesting because it makes, you know, Straw Hat Searchers relevant in a red-black deck, but at the same time, red-black is not the best color combination, so it'll be interesting to see where this goes. But we do have Jinbei here up to one of your black Straw Hat Crew type characters, gains +2 cost until the end of your opponent's next turn. So giving them multiple, higher cost on turns that they have potential, your opponent might have potential removal, actually is like a fairly solid card, fairly, you know, decent counter. But I love this. This is so cool. The vanilla cards are always great. So you got a 4/6 Chopper here, and he just looks awesome. He just looks great. Gotta have the vanilla cards, and I love that one. I do think this Nico Robin card is actually really, really interesting. So it is a 6 cost, which makes it, you know, maybe not as incredible as maybe some of the other cards that you could play for much cheaper, if not half the cost. But it is a 6/7 with 1k power. Or excuse me, 1k counter. The on play and when attacking is if you have a character with a cost of 8 or more, give up to one of your opponent's characters -5 cost during this turn. That's on play and when attacking. High cost, so relatively difficult to remove. 7k power, also hard to swing over. I do think Nico Robin's a pretty interesting card, so I actually really like that. We got Herade, or I think it's Herados, or maybe it's Herades. I can't remember. But 2k counter, 1 cost. Activate main. You may rest this character up to one of your Straw Hat, Black Straw Hat type characters. Gains +2 cost until the end of your opponent's next turn. Then if you have a character with a cost of 8 or more, draw 1 and trash 1. So little cycle, 2k counter, all that good stuff. Not too bad. We got Frankie. I love this. This is, yet again, all of this stuff being the 3D 2Y, which I think is amazing. If you look at some of the artwork, like Sanji. I didn't really highlight this, but Sanji running in, what was it, New Kama Land? Away from... running away from the new commas. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. But we've got Frankie with the Dawn X1. Opponent's turn. If you have a character with a cost of 6 or more, this character cannot be KO'd by your opponent's effects and gains +2,000 power during the opponent's turn. But it's not a blocker, so I think if it was a blocker, that would actually be a pretty solid card. But love the Brook. This is dope. The Brook vanilla. I love the vanillas. They're so cool. Obviously not played nearly as much as they used to be at the start of the game, but very, very cool. And we've got Heracles. This will be you may rest this character up to one of your Black Straw Hat type characters, gains +2 cost until the end of your opponent's next turn. And it's a 2k counter. So you obviously see there's a theme here. Now we actually have the 8 cost that's included in here. I won't lie to you, I'm a little disappointed. I thought that the 8 cost that was going to be included in this starter deck would be like a super rare, would be something noteworthy. But this card's okay. Yeah, it's okay. I don't think it's bad by any means, but it's realistically, it's only for this deck, which means that, yeah, it's actually kind of bad. But we have the 8 cost Luffy here, and if you have a character with a cost of 10 or more, this character gains Rush. So that means that when you play this down, if you do have one on your leader, and you also have the stage, which we're going to get to here shortly, this does become a 10 cost, which means that you get a 10k Rush in black, which is pretty neat. But it's very hard to achieve this in some other black decks, so it might be, you know, worth maybe thinking about just because of Jack being an 11 cost once it's played onto the board. Does make this relevant, so I don't know. You get 2 of these Luffy. I don't really think it's something that we'll see a lot of play, if any at all, but it's an interesting card. I just think that maybe they could have lowered the power a little bit, gave it 1k counter, and then it wouldn't feel like as useless. But yeah, it's meh. Yeah. But the Zoro vanilla, a lot of vanillas in the starter deck. 3. I'm not sure if 3 is the usual. I think it's usually like 2. But love the Zoro. I think this is like the 3-world cataclysm that he's doing right here. I could be wrong, but it's super sick card. Love it. Love the art on it. All the vanillas look good. Now into our events and the stages. We've got a 1-cost event, Gum Gum Giant Rifle. If you have a character with a cost of 8 or more, up to one of your leaders or character cards gains plus 3,000 power during this battle. And the trigger is add up to one of your character cards with a cost of 2 or less from the trash to your hand. Trigger's not horrible. Counter, yet again, super reliant on... pretty much this whole deck is reliant on having high-cost cards on your board. Feels really rough if you're having a lot of your stuff removed each turn. So, yeah. I think that it also means that your deck's really not going to activate until, like, the second half of the game. And that's, you know, it's not the worst thing I've seen by any means, but it's still... I think this deck does have a ways to go until it gets maybe some of the pieces that it needs to activate and really, you know, kind of pop off. But this is the longest name of a event I've ever seen. They had to literally change the font. But this is Gum Gum Diable 3-sword style Mutant Jet 600-pound Phoenix Cannon. Jesus Christ. I want to play this card simply because I want to read it out. I want to read out the name every time I play it. But main, up to one of your leader or characters gains plus 3,000 power during this turn. Then if you have a character with a cost of 8 or more, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 2 or less. Actually not bad. For a 2-cost card, pretty solid. I'm pretty sure that this was meant to be sort of like Black's... Amaru, or what's the other one? Amaru and the... Why am I forgetting the other one? There's oh, Houndblaze. I'm pretty certain that's what this was meant to be. This is supposed to be arguably like the Amaru or the Houndblaze for Black. So interesting card nonetheless. I do wonder if it will have some sort of relevance at some point. But we will see. I have my crew is draw one for 1 cost, excuse me, event. Draw 1 card, then up to one of your characters gains plus 3 cost until the end of your opponent's next turn. I like cards like this. Like, I personally wouldn't, it's not really super playable right now, but I like the idea of cards like this. This is what I was getting back to in some of my other videos, as well as what we talked about on the podcast, is cards like this are an answer to certain metas or to, you know, potential turns that your opponent can play out. So it's a 1-cost card cycle at the worst, but at, you know, being able to up the cost of one of your characters to put into range of your leader effect and or just protect them, you know, from some form of removal if you're playing up against Black. I think it's great just having something small like that. But the last card in the deck is the 1-cost stage. All of your Black Straw Hat type characters gain plus 1 cost. On play, if your leader has the Straw Hat crew type, draw 1 card. So, it's a 1-cost. You play it down and immediately just get to recycle it, which is nice because it never becomes a dead card in your hand. Obviously, you do have to pay the 1 Dawn, but, you know, not that bad. And then everything gains plus 1 cost, so even having a 6 cost on the board like Nico Robin is now an 8 with leader effect, which puts you in range of being able to use a lot of those effects as well. So I would love to hear what you guys think about this. Is anyone interested in this leader right off the bat? Were we, you know, was somebody trying to cook this up? I think that Black Luffy is a really cool leader in its idea. Do I think it's going to be super good off the start? Probably not. Just keeping it real, probably not. But I like the idea. Cards like this are really neat for the future of the game because it makes me wonder, like, oh, are we gonna see, you know, more like sets or maybe starter decks in the future that are going to be relevant to having higher cost on your board versus, you know, reducing cost and then removal. So very cool. Excited to see where this goes, but off the bat, I don't think it's going to be anything super noteworthy. Like I said, though, I always highly recommend just picking up the starter decks because you never know when one of these cards is going to become relevant, and then the price just shoots up. So if you can get it for cheap, highly recommend it. Yeah, but just kind of wanted to go over the new starter deck, check it out, see how, you know, some of the cards looked, how, you know, what the idea of the deck is and everything. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, guys. But I'll catch y'all in the next one, all right? Peace.